Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting in another episode of the Indie Show and week 2 of what appears is going to be 3 straight weeks of Fables as we wrap this up. So hope you like Fables because that's what we're talking about for a while. So I got my usual Fables panel with me as always. We got John eating his dinner. We got Rena and Sharon.
Hello.
We got the unruly Simeon. What is going on? Oh, and Loki in the background making an appearance. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the panel tonight. As they all showed you, we were talking about volumes 20 and 21. So we are almost in. Technically, there's only one issue left. Although it's like a whole volume size issue in 22. But yeah. So let's see who we had hanging out here. We got Unruly was here early. We got Burning Block. We had Rena. There will be much to debate tonight. Ooh. GTK, what is going on? Some Life with Two YouTubers person. So, yeah, it looks like that is the crowd tonight. I want to thank anybody who's hanging out with us for this discussion. So, almost at the end. Mine is actually spread over 2 hardcovers because they put all of 20 in its own, and then they got 21 and 22 in one. So,
got you.
Yeah. So, thoughts, general. As we usually kick this off, general thoughts about these 2 volumes. We'll start with the new readers again, Sharon and Rena. What were your thoughts about these 2 volumes?
I have a lot of issues with these 2 volumes.
Okay.
So many inconsistencies with the characters. There was so much gratuitous violence. I mean, I lost track of the beheadings.
And most of them just one guy.
Yeah.
I felt like some storylines were drug out. I felt like some were just completely skipped altogether. That's my generic thought. What about you?
I'm basically on the same page. Mostly, I'm kind of just mad with some of the character development that we've got going on right now. And just how so far this is panning out for the finale. I'm just kind of like.
Get the actual superstar on the show now.
There he is.
Before I let the experienced readers who have read the end, although Sharon I think has now read the end too, talk, I will say volume 21 is the most frustrated I've been with the series since volume 1.
Ooh.
And it's mainly because most of the stuff set up in 20 doesn't come to fruition. There's like missing chapters or something. Like they just drop things. 20 sets up we're getting the rise and fall of Camelot, and then we get no rise, we get no fall. They just move on to like Rose and Snow doing something else. There's just, it's not the Big B's a monster, comes back and doesn't know who he is. None of that bothered me. There's just so many other inconsistencies like you guys talked about between 20 and 21. But yeah, I was just like, what the heck is happening? And I felt like it was almost like after this whole series where there's been all these small things they've tied back together, then they just suddenly were like, we're just going to drop that because we got to get done.
It was all for naught. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to drop that because we got to get done. Now, I haven't read the end. They could fix some of this. But like, yeah, I was very frustrated with this. John and Unruly, tell us. I want to hear what your responses is to this because I didn't know if Rita and Sharon would share my thoughts. Unruly, it looks like John is pointing to you first.
I'm gonna have to. I'll just wait, and I want to hear what y'all think are the inconsistencies.
Okay.
As far as dropping Camelot, isn't that just an example? First of all, Rose finds out what the real deal is, but also it's a part of her character all along to be all gung-ho about something and then just kind of let it peter out or let her own emotions turn her in a different direction.
Which is fine. to a point, and we'll dig into the finer details in a minute. John, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
Obviously, there is a ton of story that happens here. Like there's it does ratchet up speed a lot in these 2 volumes, and a ton of characters die and a ton of big things happen. For me, the Camelot storyline is not. I feel like it's. I mean, knowing where it ends, I feel like it's just starting, and it's really we're not really even getting the. I don't even know how to explain my feelings on it. I feel like all we're gonna get in the entire run of Fables is her journey towards creating this goal, and it's not like we were gonna ever see the rise and fall of Camelot. It's more that she is on this journey, and you can see how it's all just sort of getting set up. And we're never going to see the end of her journey. That is so far down the line. But all we're seeing is those initial steps, creating this space, starting on this path, meeting some of the people that will stand in these new roles. And it's all just like the goal really is just seeing Rose finally having a direction in her life.
But does she? Like,
absolutely.
So, I mean, I guess you could say that, and again, they could fix some of this with where the final volume goes. I haven't read the final volume yet, but to me, we'll just dig into. To me, it's really about the transition from 20 to 21 that bothers me.
Okay, so they want to dive into 20 first and get.
Yeah, let's talk about 20 for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. So, hang on, my dog is just barking like crazy. I'll be right back. You guys start talking about 20.
Right.
I mean, so 20, the story of 20 is really Rose finding a direction for herself, deciding to recreate Camelot and be this champion of second chances, creating a space where many of the misbegotten fables are given the opportunity to redeem what were failures in life. And so she sets about sort of creating this empire, and it is of course not as simple as it sounds, and is filled with some pretty despicable people with no desire to necessarily right the wrongs of their past, much like when Flycatcher decided to create his new world and gave Shere Khan and Bluebeard a second chance, and that didn't turn out so well.
Right.
I think she is doing a similar act here, and she chooses, in my opinion, even worse individuals than Bluebeard and Shere Khan when she picks Brandish.
Yeah.
Can we just pause on the whole Brandish thing for a moment?
Absolutely.
So we've got the whole autopsy scene.
Yeah.
And the absolutely disgusting
play.
The doctor Swinehart.
Yes. Yeah. What a piece of garbage. Okay, now obviously we all know that she's the bad guy.
Yeah.
So, you're just kind of like, oh, well, okay. I totally thought that she was going to off him during this scene. I mean, I
think you mean to say you wish she had.
Yeah, actually, kind of, yeah. What a piece of garbage the way he's treating her.
He's
and what
horrible.
He's saying to her.
Yeah.
I mean, just really, that for me was far more gross than the whole autopsy, cutting him open and blah,
Absolutely.
blah, blah. Just the words spilling out of his really were repugnant.
Yes. He is quite loathsome, but you wonder how that might have impacted her life as his nurse for centuries, being around that and seeing it just, certainly not directed at her when she was unattractive for all those centuries, but certainly seeing him be this just foul individual.
And you have to wonder, did it maybe shape a little bit of her character? Did it maybe kind of create who she is now? Because if this is how he's been the entire time,
right.
Really, I mean, they haven't really I don't know, focused on how loathsome he is before, I don't think.
Right.
They focused on his arrogance and how he's the best doctor there is and blah, 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 blah. But they've never really shown you what a pig he really is.
Yeah. I felt like it was... I felt like they did it to show off like her transition, because she talked about, like, Mr. Dark talked about how she was going to be like the most desirable one or whatever, like when he was done with her, and like the fairest of them all, I guess, or whatever. And I get they did it, but boy, did he, like, the Doctor had always been kind of a scummy character, but he just comes off as just
Creepy?
worse than creepy. Like, yeah. Well, and he kind of, like, to me, like, it was a different degree, but I just thought the whole way he handled the whole blue thing, like, when he was, well, you can't be still sick because I fixed you. And, like, just, like, he's always been, like, an arrogant jackass.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it wasn't a surprise, but boy, it was disgusting. Like, just the way he, like, behaves.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, we find out that, Brandish doesn't have a heart, and that his heart is located in a different location, and that he actually cannot die permanently. So, I mean, that was like a huge reveal there. And then we jump back to, Snow and her big, I'm going to create Camelot, which for me, I thought Camelot was almost more of like a humorous vein, where they, they made Lancelot Guinevere, and, how they were like trying to throw those little pieces of humor in there. So I didn't really focus a whole lot on the whole Camelot thing, honestly.
So before we do you guys want to handle the Brandish storyline, or do you guys want to deal with the Camelot stuff first? Like, because I feel like you almost have to talk about both volumes to a certain degree on a couple of these storylines.
Brandish, I feel like you do need to talk both volumes, but the root of Camelot, I feel like, has more to do with Rose Red.
Let's talk Camelot first, and then we'll circle back to Brandish and what she does and all that kind of stuff. Like, so her forming Camelot. So here's one of my problems with this: is Lancelot, when he left Haven, was supposed to be fading and moving on. Like, that was the whole thing. He was a ghost that was come back, like, just like from the power of everybody else. They talk about how Waylon would fade if he's not around everything else, and he was choosing to go on. Like, that his mission was done. And maybe I didn't go back and double check all of this, but that was my understanding of when he left Haven after, like, the kingdom was set up, was that he was going on, that his life was done. And then suddenly he's just back as this old, like, as a guy. Like to me, that totally, like, counteracted what his story was before. Like, that his whole thing, his redemption was setting up Haven and serving that king, and then he was moving on. He was done. He had paid his pendants, and now he's like back, and he's still a guy. Like, he's still physical form and alive. And like, am I wrong? And like, my confusion there? Did I miss something?
But what did Ambrose say? Aren't we the people in the stories?
Yeah.
And if you know the Camelot myth, that's powerful. It keeps getting retold over and over. And Lancelot's guilt is so strong. I can't imagine that just what he did in Haven was enough to cleanse his own mind of it. And some people will never get over the sins they've committed.
Right.
Imagine.
Here, and my perspective on him was that he certainly was carrying a ton of baggage, enough that he was able to live in the business office as basically a skeleton for centuries. And he certainly did a fair share for Flycatcher, but I have a feeling, for me, I took it as the magic that Rose is channeling here to really recreate this Camelot legend draws him. It is quite literally the opportunity to right a wrong for him. Right. And and here he comes, like, bedraggled out of the afterlife, as if the magic is pulling him back to redeem himself in some fashion.
Okay, I could see that. It just felt odd, because I felt like he had went, like, his spirit kind of like Blue, like,
he had a poetic moment.
Went on. Yeah. Like, I felt like that was a choice he made. Like, And then it was like, no, apparently he didn't make that choice. And so it was just a confusion moment for me. Like, why is he showing up? Like, it makes sense why he's there. But it was like, wait, I thought he'd already made this choice to move on. And like, to me, that felt like a step back as a character, or that I missed something. Like, maybe is my only point there. He serves the story, but it's just like, but it just felt weird to me because I thought they'd written him out a different way. Like,
right.
But that's what this comic is all about, is story, right?
Right.
And in the stories, they never finish. And you're constantly being drugged back against your will. That Camelot myth is so powerful. And look at the hubris of Rose Red thinking she can round off the rough edges and actually make it work.
Yeah.
Well, I think she, much like her arc, I think she's so desperate for a second chance. She is so desperate to prove her worth or her value that she will tackle something as monumentally difficult as giving Fables, characters whose core tenets are ground into them for centuries, and try to redeem them into finding a path. Right. Talk about hubris, right? Talk about a Herculean challenge.
Well, and she's trying. I mean, like, in her arc, like in this volume, I really enjoy, because she's trying to do something there's arrogance to it, but she's still trying to live up to Big Sister, who's whatever 3 minutes fat older or whatever it is. But like she's still trying to like step out of Snow's shadow.
Definitely.
This is what it's all about. This is her chance to do good. Like, she's gonna be
and has huge good intentions here.
Yes. And we'll get into why her arc here, why it pisses me off, like the quick transition when we get to here.
Oh yeah, because she turns into an enormous douchebag.
Yeah. Well, and some of it I think they're trying to explain, but like I just think I just think the transition is poor. And
it's too drastic, too extreme.
Well, it goes from
it was part of the inconsistencies for me. I mean, it was just, they build her up. She's doing great. I mean, and this has been going back since she got out of bed and since she met Hope.
Right.
And, so you've had all this building up and building up and building up of her scrambling and clawing her way up this cliff. And then she just turns into such a monumental turd,
Yeah, I almost feel like this arc of hers that they're starting would have done better before she made up with Snow. Because obviously you learn at the end of 21 that it's the whole thing against Snow and what she learns. We'll get into it more in detail later, but I feel like it would have been better if it had been placed before she reestablished her relationship with Snow and the Cubs. Because now they're at this good place, and while this next arc is about to ruin it.
Well, I actually disagree with that a little bit. Like, I'm fine with where it goes and the fact that the two sisters are going to fight at some point, like that it's leading to this. I just don't like the transition into it. And the fact is, she's trying to do something good on her own. And then suddenly, when you open volume 21, she's suddenly a box for all the monsters in the universe. They all just go sucked into her for no explanation, no reason, other than she's been, I guess, gathering magical power. And then everybody in the whole community that has any magic at all knows that they're about to fight, except for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, and there's like, wait, why does everyone see a fight coming when there's been at this point, there's been no animosity? And then when the armor shows up, then she's like, I don't know. It's just the transition just was jarring. I felt like I was missing like 2 issues, like to like set that up. Like, I felt it jumped so quickly from like the last time you see her is
last time in 20 or 21?
In 20, the last time you see her is Lancelot's going, oh, I'm like, she's just set up her big table, or she's just like named her knights, and then she's like, her and Lancelot, and he's like, crap, I'm Guinevere,
which is hilarious.
Which is an awesome moment.
hilarious.
And then, like, the first moment of 21 is these things getting sucked into her, and suddenly, and then everyone else knows there's about to be a fight, and it's like, wait, you didn't set that up in the last volume at all, like. It took me out of the story. It just bothered me. It was like, oh, we're going to get here.
I mean, all Snow at this point cares about is Bigby and her kids.
Yeah.
You know? And then, of course, Brandish coming back into the mix. So even she's pretty oblivious until she like gets a sword and she gets armor, and then they're all, oh, she's going to be the bad guy. And you're like, what is even going on here?
And like, I get that Snow was like, Snow was angry at her because of the Brandis thing. That's fine. But Snow was like not focused on her at all. Like, and I don't know, like the part of it maybe bothered me the most was that everybody else was like, just assumed they were about to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like everyone else knows where the story goes with them.
Even Snow's own daughter. Even Snow's daughter is like, I'll raise your army for you, mommy, because you have no clue what the heck's going on. It's like, okay.
Yeah. No, and see, and that's kind of why it bugged me that, I mean, not that everybody else knew, but the fact that they're about to fight again is because it's like, I get that, they're setting it up. And I get the, and I can see how they kind of set it up to where it's not as if, because Rose is ultimately like a jerk at the end of 21, she just completely, in my opinion, but I can see how they tried to set it up to where it was almost more of a fear motivation for her when she finds out what is going on.
Right.
But again, it's like, because at this point, she's made up with Snow. She acknowledges she loves her sister. She loves her nieces and nephews. And the fact that, she thinks that Snow would be willing to get at her first is driving her to suddenly push for this war when she knows that Snow has no interest in what's going on right now. Like, that's kind of shame on her.
Well, I think with the big reveal where she finds out who her mom was and what the end game is, and, it's dog or eat dog or whatever. I mean, you can kind of see that, but she takes it to the next level where she's like, well, not only am I going to kill my sister and get the power, but I'm going to kill her children, and then I'm going to steal her man. It's like, come on, really? That was a step for me. That was an inconsistency there too. So, but we've talked a lot.
Yeah, so we jumped right into like the main arc of this, but like, I want to, John. So where are we wrong? Where are we what are we missing? So
well, firstly, I would say that as much as they healed some portions of their relationship, they were both they both had huge mountains in front of them. It was not like everything was hunky dory. They definitely had things that they didn't know about one another, secrets they were keeping from one another, truths that neither of them were willing to acknowledge. And second, I feel like the smarter magical characters know trouble is coming because they can because for me it's all set up in 20 when we see what happened to Bigby, right? And we see Brandish basically getting away with it at Rose's behest. Rose's letting and the next few pages are Snow basically going and talking to Therese and saying, like, I don't lose, and my sister blew it tonight. Like, I can't redeem her for this. She's crossed a line. Right. And so that's, and now the two women, the sisters might not realize war is coming because they might be looking at it as a personal feud, but they're both so powerful, and Rose is now gaining in so much magic power that others around them are able to see where this is going, and that there's no way for this to resolve without major conflict. And so magical beings who are seeing what Rose is creating and what Rose is doing and the amount of energy she's channeling are able to say, There's no way to solve this. These sisters have such a history. They're never going to talk this out.
So, but here's my problem, like with what you're saying there, John, is, and again, I feel like there's missing chapters, is because it's not that not that the conflict is coming. I felt like that for a long time, that we were going to White Queen, Red Queen a long time ago, like from the beginning. Well, like if you see that, and yeah, you're like even before you see that, like I get that. My problem is they set it up in 20 as Camelot, and Lake is going, well, who's going to play your role, Morgana, like Morgan Le Fay? And she's like, well, it's obviously probably Snow. So they're setting it up as the Camelot conflict kicking this off. And you feel like, well, it's all based on the Brandis thing. But the Brandis thing, other than like just making them mad at each other to start with, has nothing to do with why they actually are about to start fighting.
Yeah.
Like Rose just goes off on her own and is like suddenly like you see the moment after they both get their armor and Snow names her sword and Rose is like, well, arrogant little thing, I'm gonna name my sword. And it was just like, wait, what?
It seemed petty, is what
it just seemed petty and like suddenly they were just gonna fight to fight. That to me it didn't feel like they'd set up the reason I was complaining is like they set up the Rise and Fall of Camelot and this ultimate fight between them in 20, and then they just ditched it by, oh, we're going to shove all these like evil beings into Rose as the box. And then they're just going to, as soon as they see each other, they're going to armor up magically, even though they don't know what's going on. And then they're just going to be petty toward each other. And it didn't even have anything to do with what was supposedly kicking off the fight. It was just so, I don't know. It was just so weird. I couldn't handle the transition. It wasn't that they were going to fight. It was that, like, the steps to me didn't exactly make sense. And really, we haven't let you talk for a while, man.
Well, it's what's more petty than two siblings?
Not much.
Estranged siblings that have spent the vast majority of their life barely speaking.
Yeah.
It's not an accident that Rose was in charge of the farm and Snow White basically ran Fabletown for all those years once they got to the Mundy. And Brandish is a huge factor. That I remember the first time I read that, I don't care what Rose Red's reasoning was, I'd have been dumping that cement truck and told her, you're just going to have to live with it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Because that's really a case of Rose overreaching. You mentioned Ambrose and Shere Khan and that duo, but Ambrose knew that he could, drain their life force at any given moment. He was the one powering them.
Sure.
But he's he's way more of a thinker than Rose. Rose is she feels it and does it. Like she's just a force of nature almost.
But here's the thing. Here's my complaint about that. Because let's get into the Brandish thing. Because she pulls him out of the thing. It's like she's estranged herself from her sister.
Well,
and
I'm gonna back you up a couple steps, just because you're skipping one of my favorite moments, which is when she machine guns him. Okay, so again, the whirlwind of emotion that is Rose, when she finds out he's still alive, has a similar reaction to her sister, which is she's got to kill this guy, and she rolls in there, and he's like, oh, I can't be killed. What's there to worry about? And then Rose kicks in the door and says this, and just mows him down with a machine gun. It's one of my favorite moments in Volume 20. I was just like, oh my freaking God. And then it cuts to him, strapped to a table or strapped to in the bottom of the pit. I mean, it's so phenomenal. And then you get a view of from above, like the cement mixer and the whole, I feel like she is a boss. And then when she flips the script and has this inspiration that this could be her mark on hope as redemption.
Yeah, second chances.
That's of course when it transit, but like the machine gun, I love the machine gun.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's my problem with that scene. The biggest problem in the Brandish story, where Brandish goes after this, is she pulls him out of the pit. Like she's made this choice. She's chosen to follow second chances over her sister. Like she's gonna give this guy a second chance. She's gonna do this. And she pulls him out of the pit, and her whole conversation is, "I'm gonna make you take all these magical oaths that tie you to me, and like where you can't do anything." And the moment she's 15 feet away for 30 minutes, like he can do whatever the hell he wants. So she clearly had no follow through.
Nope.
Yeah.
She did nothing. Like
Yep.
she just pulled him out of the pit and let him go run amok.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm just gonna make him do hard labor. How was that even like possibly a second chance or setting up any kind of like? There's no plan there. Like it was so pathetic on her part that this was her big plan. Was I'm gonna like this ultimate evil to my family. I'm gonna give him a second chance, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna bind him where he can't do stuff. Like he's gonna have to take magical oaths, and he clearly didn't because he's just doing whatever the hell he wants. And the moment she's out of the picture for 15 minutes, but I'm just gonna make him do hard labor. That's her. She talks about it being her special project, and like she did nothing.
Yeah. I mean, a guy who murdered his own mother, for crying out loud. I mean, he has no soul. He has no remorse or anything. I mean, for me, it was no big surprise when he just started killing people again, So, yeah, but I think that just kind of lends itself to her impetuous decision making. She doesn't think things through. She's very emotional. She's very volatile. And now, unfortunately, she's very powerful, So you've got all that emotion and all that power. And she's just like, well, I'm going to go ruin my sister's life now.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on the whole Big B Blue scene in heaven. I thought that was really a cool scene.
Let's circle back to that just in a minute because I want to finish some of the like Rose and Camelot stuff, and then we'll do the big B.
Yes.
I just like to point out something that happened in a previous volume that is really cool. Remember when Snow stabs him and he goes, straight through the heart. Typical.
Yeah.
Nice little foreshadowing there that,
Yes. No, they foreshadowed that. Like, I'll be honest, like, I suspected that wasn't actually the end of him, but I wasn't I didn't necessarily see where it was going, but I suspected we weren't done with him. But in some way, I didn't actually anticipate exactly what it was he had done, what he had done to keep living. But like the other thing is like, and maybe this is my biggest part about the Camelot is she names her knights, and maybe we'll get it in the final part, but we don't even get a single second chance mission. Like she's gonna go out and have them help people get second chances, and we don't even get one. Not like we don't like get a whole arc of them doing this or like multiple stories. We don't even get one. So they set this up and it's like
I didn't pay attention to the Camelot thing.
Yeah, it's like to me it just made a lot of this pointless. Other than Rose is suddenly magically powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The end. Like I don't know. It just that whole transition just bothered me a ton.
It's almost like they could have made this segment longer, but they were aiming to wrap Fables up. So they suddenly took probably what was worth another 2 or 3 volumes worth of information or buildup and dumped it into the last 3 volumes.
Yeah.
Well, I just like to point out the folly of looking for logic in a comic book, let alone a comic book about fairy tales.
This is true.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to their point, you have this suspension of disbelief that takes you so far, and within a concept, you buy into these are fables. You buy into it. But when they do things out of character, that's a different kind of suspension of disbelief. Yeah. So I do feel like there is a hastening of plot in these volumes, and including the next one. Like I think it just I could totally understand the fact that maybe they were trying to impart as much story in as few issues as they had left. So I can understand that a little bit, that frustration. Yeah. But for me, it doesn't. For me, Rose is pretty consistent as far as who she's always been, and
Right.
making decisions without thinking through the consequences is her mode. Like that is
Right.
her on button.
Again, like the part that they were complaining about where she like finds out the history and decides that that's what she's gonna do, and like how she's gonna, to me that didn't seem out of character at all. It was just like I just thought that the transition did not work for me from I'm King Arthur and I'm gonna do this round table thing, and then suddenly I'm gonna kill my sister. Like it was like, and I felt like there needed to be more to fit that together. Well, she decided she's gonna kill her sister before she ever gets to that moment. Like
that magic apparently runs in their family very strong.
Right.
But
the magic, why is it taken this many years?
Yeah.
Like their mom was like 13 years old when the magic kicked in. Like, why?
I would argue that it's been spinning its web for quite a while between the two of them to try to kill each other for quite a while.
When has Snow ever tried to kill her?
No, I'm just saying, like
they never tried to kill each other. They haven't gotten along. They've never tried to kill each other, though.
But see, apparently, all these previous generations grew up knowing that was the outcome. They never had that knowledge, which might also help explain their feud through the centuries.
I guess that's true.
Remember, her little guide tells her, people have tried in the past to resolve this without bloodshed, and it just doesn't work.
No.
I just don't know that Snow was nearly as pissed off at Rose as Rose was at Snow. I think that Snow had such a crappy life, and she had seen so many awful things that, by the time that she, is with Bigby and she has her kids, she is perfectly content having a good relationship with Rose and just living out their life. There's no point of contention for her there.
No, it's
until she brings Brandis in. There's no reciprocation of the anger.
Not at all.
And
which is why I think it's shame on Rose, because it's like she knows everything that's going on in Snow's life right now. And I mean, they try and explain it with the fact that, Rose, it's almost like they set it up as though Rose is afraid that Snow might come after her one day. But the fact that she didn't know should tell her that Snow doesn't know.
She knows Snow doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, it's kind of shame on her because, if she's paying any attention whatsoever, she knows that Snow has no interest in what's going on. And she should go talk to her about it first.
Okay, so I really want to touch on that. You are hitting on one of the classic story elements, which is miscommunication, or every episode of Three's Company centered around somebody not having the right conversation with somebody at the same time. Like, this is like classic. Now, it can be frustrating when it's so painfully obvious when these two people just need to sit and talk and have a chat. But it's a classic element of story that like people aren't having the deep, meaningful conversation or saying the correct thing they need to say in the correct moment. And I personally like how it's used here because these two have horrible communication, and there's no way that one of their instincts for either one of them is going to be, I'll just have a little heart to heart.
And I do
like
think
that is the opposite instinct for them.
And
they're like, I can't trust her. Every time I've tried to talk to her, it's gotten worse. Like we don't communicate. It doesn't work.
And I do think that is where you do see the magic play a role. It's because when Rose is like, I need to talk to Snow. And she goes to talk to her, and then she's like, Snow. And then the armor and like weapons come out. And it's like, wait, what is this? So the magic itself at that point, excuse me.
But to your point, I mean,
intervening.
Rena, there's been a ton of times when I'm watching a movie or seeing a show and being like, come on, you guys, just stop and talk. Like, take 2 seconds. Yeah. It's a classic trope of story that's like, and it can be infuriating when you're like, they would just talk. They would not draw down. So I get what you're saying. But for me, it works enough just because of how bad their communication is. And I do think it's important to recognize the Jiminy Cricket sequence when she's learning all this. The magic seems villainous. The magic seems to want to manipulate her to meet its own ends, right?
Absolutely.
what she has started here, what she has started with Camelot, and I would argue that it's just beginning. So we're not looking for the fall of Camelot to occur in these volumes. What we're seeing is the magic has a mind of its own, and Jiminy Cricket is not the sweet little conscience in Pinocchio. He is a manipulative bastard, and he is there to make sure things play out. He has been robbed of the battle between the sisters that should have happened when they were 13, and he's been waiting for this to pay off. Snow got a little, I think, wasn't there a memory moment like a few trades back where she got to see life when, or maybe Rose got to see
when Hope showed
twice. It's been so she's gone to this. She's gone to the house twice and gotten a little understanding, and then gets a deeper understanding here. And then you also see Snow remembering the 7 dwarves and that horrible experience that she went through.
Relating that to her daughter, and
relating that to the issues she's always had with her sister, where her sister just doesn't understand what I went through, and then the other one feels like they don't understand what I went through, and there's a lot of that. So for me, like I get it and I dig it, and that works, even if it does feel like I could have easily used 2 or 3 more issues interspersed.
To me, it was the transition was just so jarring.
Sure.
From Rose is like doing this Camelot thing to I'm gonna kill my sister. And it was like, to me, it just was like it was too quick. There needed to be. I just needed a little more. I don't know. It bothered me
for sure.
So before we do the Bigby storyline, which is the other big one, let's talk about something they mentioned before, which is Winter and her plotting behind the scenes, which I love.
I was gonna say, for as much griping as I was doing for these books, that was actually one thing that I thought was really cool. Is you see Winter really stepping up in her role, after being unsure for so long. But now that it's like her dad is gone and her mom, kind of needs her, she's stepping in and she's basically running everything. I would say, and I mean, obviously I haven't read the final one yet, so I'm not exactly sure if they go back to it. But it kind of seems like the whole conflict with the 3 winds that were all plotting against her kind of seems like that was wrapped up in a snap. Like there was no real conflict that came out of that because she stepped up into her role, other than they've been moaning a whole lot. So unless they come back to that, I kind of think that they used Winter's authority over them as kind of like a sweeping under the rug of that whole thing.
I think it definitely got wrapped up quickly, or to show how much power Winter's come into.
Yeah.
Well, hey, anybody who can boss Santa around has got
it. Right? I'm like Winter. Come on.
I do love. They do give I do enjoy the explanation of the fact that she's like, even though she hasn't aged, like just being king of the North, like she's aged, because she's been everywhere and she is everywhere basically that she wants to be. And this when she like takes that form and it's like, all right. Actually, that one I didn't mind as much being wrapped up quickly because I honestly didn't have much interest in those other wins. So like they hadn't struck me as interesting characters really. So I was glad she just kind of put her foot down. I was like, no, you were wrong. I'm not going to be a pushover and get in line. But I do love, and like when the cat is like coming to visit, she's like, oh, I got somebody who's going to ruin my like, mom's not ready yet. I got this worked out. Shut up, cat. So no, I do love the way she steps up in this. I thought that was excellent. Do we want to finish the Brandish and story before we go to Bigby's story?
Yeah, because Bigby's really the final big thing or strand that happens. So yeah, let's just.
Or there's also Morgana and the Lady of the Lake, who I think is
that's kind of
a hilarious drunk. I think.
Yeah,
she's a hilarious drunk.
So the Brandish thing, because we've been talking about him. So Rose gets distracted by killing Snow, and then suddenly Brandish, because apparently she didn't follow through with any of the magical bindings at all, suddenly kills Waylon and calls for trial by combat because he knows he can't be killed. And so he can get away with it. and just go about his business of hunting snow, like, and basically fights Lancelot over and over and over again, and loses and loses and loses. But because he can't be killed, he doesn't actually lose. So here's my, like, again, my issues with this is that she didn't, and I get that it's not her nature to follow through. But it was just frustrating that there clearly was absolutely no follow through. Like, there wasn't anything.
Or that other people suffer the consequences for her.
Yeah.
Which is infuriating.
Yes.
Yeah, so many good people die because she's such a moron, you know?
And, like, eventually I'm sure it's not done yet, but, like, where's the end here?
He wins.
Yeah, he kills Lancelot, which also totally negates the whole joke at the end of 20 for me. Like, the whole, oh, I'm Guinevere. Like, they're setting this up, and then it's like, no, Lancelot's actually dead.
Yeah, Rose doesn't even get her true love in the end.
Does
like,
she deserve a true love?
Probably not, but
I mean,
after she wanted to be with Bigby.
I know. But
yeah. I mean, to me, it was just another sign they were just completely dropping the Camelot thing they set up in the previous volume. By like, oh, we're setting this up and he's going to be Guinevere. And it's like, oh, no, he's not. He's just dead. And I don't know. It's just, again, they could fix some of this.
In that instance, it feels like you're expecting it to be a literal follow of
I just expect
Camelot,
not a literal follow.
Where he's in a love triangle and sleeping with somebody else. And
like, no, not necessarily that. I just expected like even a slight follow-up of them as
King
and Queen or something. Like at least a transition step before he's just dead.
Well,
like
you got them having sex. I mean,
I guess we get that.
Yeah, they had their night of passion.
They had one night, and then I don't know. It just it felt like there was no. Like I said, I feel like I'm missing about 2 issues of Camelot. Like that, I felt like I needed to before we transition to what is 21. And I think that's really my biggest problem with a lot of the stuff in 21 is I just felt like it jumped to it. Like this whole story, one of the things I've loved about it is he set all these little things up, and then he's followed through on them later. Like, and we've got connections, and he's followed through on it. And here at the end, it's like he's got all the stuff out there now, and he's like, I'm just going to drop some of this because I got to get to the end, which has not been the nature of the story the whole way. And it felt jarring. It felt like a jarring transition to go from I'm going to follow up on this stuff to no, I'm not. Go ahead, John. You're disagreeing with me again.
I'm not disagreeing. I do think that this the ending feels. I hesitate to use the word rushed, but feels quick. It feels like there's a lot happening in versus previous volumes. I feel like there was a more measured pace.
Right.
So I do agree with that. I don't contend that at all. For me, the Camelot story is more about rising to power on an ideal and having that ideal sort of rot from the inside. Yeah. And that the ideal is the fact that second chances, in her case at least, that second chances are something that everyone is worthy of, or that everyone is even capable of achieving.
Right.
And I think that is proven by Brandish's the epic failure of Brandish as a part of this process.
Yeah.
Which I also just want to interject just real quick, like not even conversation point. I love how she stole that from Therese. Like her whole idea from that was after Therese showed back up, and that was her deal in her kingdom. And Rose was like, yes, this is an excellent idea.
It is true. Like she just did steal it completely from her niece. Like, oh, you're redeeming all these toys. It's second chances.
That's why it's blocked.
But that to me was perfect Rose, because that is absolutely Rose. Like, I'm going to steal your idea.
Well, and they even kind of foreshadow that because they had like the little toys that were around the wooden round table, and she
Yeah.
steps on it and breaks the table.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell you right there what a train wreck she's gonna be.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it flopped so fast, JP. Maybe it was just set up to fail from the start.
But
I
anyway,
guess. It is Rose, so.
Brandish and how spectacularly evil he is.
Oh yeah, and he kills
And how
Lancelot.
his heart is in a different location with all its little tubes, and then a little birdie comes along.
Shut up.
Hey, now, some of that's not in this volume, I don't think.
Quiet.
Some of that's not in this volume, I don't think. Don't be telling stuff that's not here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would love to hear Unruly how he feels about the pacing in these volumes.
You know, I didn't see it as jarring. I didn't see it as rushed or quick. It just seemed like a natural part of the story to me. But then it's very hard for me to truly look at something critical that I've gotten so much joy out of.
Sure.
I guess I got that burnt out of me in college, writing so many damn papers of literature and books and having to dissect it then. And I can't, that's not in me anymore.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well said.
So, the last kind of connection to the Camelot stuff side of these two volumes is the Lady in the Lake, which John wanted to talk about a little bit. So Steve starts to try to figure out, oh, this is Camelot. I want to see where this is going, and goes to knock on Snow's door, and since Snow would be the prime candidate to be Morgan Le Fay, and Ambrose answers the door.
And she freaks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, a spectacular freak out.
Oh my god.
Well, it's because, I mean, from the last issue, we already know that she ends up with.
Yeah, we already know what.
We already know.
If
Yeah,
she suddenly sees her fate.
She know. Yeah.
Her husband as a child.
I know.
That would be so awkward. Oh my god.
That's probably why she trips out.
That's absolutely why she trips out. Yeah, I mean,
Well, and the other thing is, she's went through how many thousands of years doling out fate to everybody else, and not ever having a fate of her own, other than she was doling out fates, and she got to pick and choose what people got, and and kind of had fun with giving people crappy fates or whatever at her whim early, and later she got more serious about it. But and then suddenly there's her fate, and it's wait, this is not how this game works.
this is what it's like to be on the other side.
Yeah, she's suddenly on the other side. And I think, the fact that she's a drunk, and I love when they talk about it later, she's like, what? Somebody mentions, what, Lake, that drunk or whatever? Well, that's a recent development.
So there's that saying that comedy is drama when it happens to you.
Yeah.
And drama is comedy when it happens to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think she's been living on borrowed time for that.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else to add to that little story bit? I know we're way into this, and we have not talked about the Bigby side of stuff yet. All right, so we find out what Mrs. Spratt, or Miss Douglas now, what her plan was. So suddenly, apparently, in addition to getting skinny from Mr. Dark, she's got a bunch of magical power.
And kind of looks like
And
a
looks
female
like
dark
him.
mini-me.
Yeah, she seems to be transitioning into a dark mini-me, but she basically corrupts their efforts to bring Bigby back and steals a portion of him that she uses to make a little ring. So what did you guys think of that? That was her game plan here to
I had a ton of issues with it. I guess for me, if you're going to turn somebody into a mindless zombie, then they're a mindless zombie. And he kills all these people, including huge pivotal characters like Beast and
Ozama,
Ozma?
which I really think they did Beast kind of dirty there.
Yeah.
Because, later it's just oh, well, Beast is dead. Who cares? Nobody
Well,
cares.
yeah, I did. That was another thing I had a complaint with, is the fact that we get no fallout from Beast dying. At least maybe we get it, but we already got the last Beauty and the Beast story.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe we still get it, but the fact that there was no fallout from his death for a character in a family that we followed all through this with
That
Beauty
really bothered
and
me.
their daughter, like, that bothered me.
Yeah, me
it wasn't that he died. It wasn't even that he died quickly, because I think given where he was in the story, like where his strength was and the suit was and where Bigby was at, that actually made sense to me. It also set how big a threat Bigby actually is up. But the fact that there was no follow-up with the family bothered me.
He's dead.
Like, there's no funeral. You don't even see Beauty weeping. There's absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So, but following the train of thought that I had there, if Bigby was so mindless that he was willing to kill his good friend and kill all these people and then he's faced with Rose and he's like, oh, no, I can't kill you, your family.
And
what? Come on.
So here's my thought on that, and I'll let the others speak. Is like when we first see him, when he first comes back, like he can't even speak. He's completely mindless, and you can see she's trying to make him go to the house, but he's resisting, like because she's been trying to get him out of the city and go to the house the whole time, like because that's her game. Her end game is revenge on Snow for Snow saying mean things to her, like. Really, that's what it's all about.
Right.
But he's resisting. And then by the time Ozma and Beast come, he's talking a little bit, but it's like, should come, run, go away. Like, you shouldn't. Like, he's barely talking. By the time he's confronted with Totem, I can't, Totem and Rose. He's speaking in full sentences. Like you see, he's actually like slowly but surely getting himself back. To me, that is why it made a little bit of sense that he actually, and he's been resisting her the whole time because she's been trying to send him to the house, and he won't go. He's trying to get to Snow and is instead of like going to where the Cubs are, like. So for me, it actually didn't bother me as much, that he's trying to resist there, and that he doesn't follow through on that. But that was just me. I'm curious what everyone else thinks.
Well, but then Rose is able to easily control him once she gets the ring. So any
does she? Is she controlling him at that point?
Well, I mean, you get that cliffhanger where Snow shows up at the house and the house is trashed.
Right, but here's my question: is Rose gets the ring? And we'll talk about how she gets the ring, which I actually, and then, and she's but she's plotting, she's in this other world, in her house, and she's plotting how she's going to do it, which is not what we're seeing. Bigby is suddenly going home. To me, I feel like he's just still out of control monster, not in his right mind. And there's nobody controlling him at this point. Because Rose clearly isn't paying attention to anything at that moment to me other than herself.
So then what's with the cliffhanger at the end though? Because you kind of get the impression that she does march to Wolf Manor and you see that single freeze frame of Snow showing up at the house in shambles.
Right.
Because you've got the scene here where she puts the ring on and then she's imagining herself with him and she's like, okay, yeah, he's mine now. So, yeah, you totally get the impression that, she's got the power and she's going to control him and, make him kill her sister and whatever.
I guess maybe, but I don't know. I just didn't read it that way. To me, it read that he had went there before she had exerted really any control over him. But maybe I'm wrong on that because this scene doesn't match what she's just laid out she's going to do.
Right.
Which is calm him down and making pretend that he's got his memory back and let Snow get her guard down.
Right, which is kind of like her fantasy, but then in the reality, it snaps back to Snow coming upon the house.
Right.
So yeah, and maybe I'm just reading that a little differently than you guys, but John and really, what do you guys? We went through a lot of that there. What do you guys think of it?
So I think what is upsetting for some people in these last few pages with Rose getting the ring is the reality versus fantasy elements that are playing out.
Yeah, it's
I
just
don't think
confusing a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think she's implying, oh, I'm going to make him fall in love with me and then be mine, and we're going to, raise pups and have our own. She's not planting a love seed. She says, I'll make him think I was the sister he wanted all along. She's going to manipulate his thinking to get him to do what she wants. Her goal here is not to sleep with him. The image you see there is what she's going to plant in his mind to manipulate him.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then
Why
earlier,
no, it's because he thinks he actually loves Rose.
Earlier, she says, I'll have him settle down again. Lock the monster away. Bring back the loving husband, at least the semblance. And then once she thinks he's tamed again, he'll get right back inside of her defenses and she'll never see the killing strike come. So that's her manipulation, is to control him by making him think that Snow is a villain in some way and that he really wants to be with Rose.
I see.
Make everything happy in the home until the right moment when she can exert force over him. So I didn't view it as like, I love him and I'm going to steal him away from my sister, as much as it is like, I'm going to manipulate him. If she's going to come at me, I'm going to have an ace in the hole ready to flip the tables whenever I want. Her secret weapon is now my secret weapon.
Right. But here's the thing. I'm just going to say this. Like, I feel like the other part of that, though, she would totally do afterward, just to get at her sister. like not because she wants him, but because that's just me. I totally could see her doing that just because of who she is. Am I wrong?
I mean, she kind of did it with Prince Charming. I mean, they didn't ever have kids.
She actually did it with Prince Charming.
Yeah, she actually did it with Prince Charming. So,
100%.
And Ruling, what are your thoughts on this part? You've been very quiet this time, mainly because we've been talking bad about Fables. I think.
No, that's totally cool. Yeah, I'm with John. This hadn't played out yet.
Yeah,
she's describing her plans. There's still a lot to come.
Yeah,
but and in the last pages, you see it all coming together in the same moment.
Right.
Lancelot dies. The bird makes its journey to where it's going. And she's got this, Red has this plan formed in her head.
Yeah.
And Snow arrives at the Wolf Manor to see it in disarray. So obviously that disarray at Wolf Manor is something different.
Yeah.
Or that would be my guess.
See, my thought was that, like, this is her thinking out her plan, but this is what's going on in reality, why she's plotting. Like, to me, that's where I thought that she hadn't sent him yet, that he went on his own, and, like, she's making her plan, but it may not matter by the time she gets back. So we'll see. That's the way I read it, at least. That he wasn't there because she sent him. He was there because she was off making her plan, but not paying attention to what was actually going on. Like, this is the way I took that part. So what do we think about, to back up a little bit in Bigby's story, what do we think about the how Rose figures out Mrs. Spratt or Miss Douglas?
She's stupid.
Yeah. This is where I was at. Like, could she have been more, the fact that she was arguing for mercy for him from her? Like, how did that everyone just go immediately like, wait, you want mercy for somebody? Like,
yeah.
And then she's wearing, like Rose says, she's wearing this glass ring that Rose can see all this magic now, and it's like, oh, well, that's pretty easy to figure out.
Well, I think that she's probably become so arrogant, and I think she's fully embraced her mantle as the new Mr. Dark. I mean, even to the point where she looks like him. Mm-hmm. It probably didn't even occur to her because he was very arrogant. You know, I mean, he was just, well, this is how it's going to be, and I'm untouchable. And since she was kind of his protege, I could see why she would be that dumb and arrogant to be like, oh, hey, I'm going to wear this ring. It's pretty. It's sparkly. Check it. It was a little bit anticlimactic because she died, though.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like her whole arc was just to set up Rose, which I think is a little disappointing because, I mean, you have, Miss Douglas as, the aftermath of the dark, arc, and they've given her such a long time to establish herself, and they build her up, and suddenly she makes her move and she gets less than one volume. and the ring falls in Rose's possession to start the final sister arc. So to me, I thought that was like, I feel like we should have gotten a little bit more from her before the sister arc, because it kind of just made it look like she was a transition rather than a villain. Which, I considering how long she's been around, kind of was disappointing for me in the end.
So, not so much for me, because I felt like she always had an overinflated opinion of her importance. like I think that's all she was. That she was both from a storytelling point and in a reality standpoint, that she was a means to an end. Her whole she was never as important as what she thought she was or intended to be, and she was definitely no match for these two that she was pitting herself against. But that was me. John, what do you think of her downfall, her rise and fall, as Rena says in 20 pages?
That's all she gets.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that she never really had a plan, that her plan was always changing, because at first she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then she started asking for things from Dark, and then was marrying him was her plan. And then he dies and she's left with some sort of remnant of his magic imbued into her from the things he did to her. So then she's laying grounds for trying this, and then Big B's death and then she aligns herself with Brandish, and that kind of collapses. And then Big B's trauma as a crystal sculpture gives her another opportunity, and then she uses some of her magic to try to capitalize on that. So I do feel like her story is a long one with several attempts at trying to stab at them whatever way she can, and I would argue she succeeds pretty admirably by killing two of the cooler characters in the series through Bigby, and in some ways pushing Rose and Snow further to their
realistically
confrontation.
Her whole motivation at the beginning when she joins Mr. Dark was she wanted to make all the pretty ones suffer.
Yeah.
And mainly Snow, because Snow was the one that told her how it was. And so I mean, and to a certain degree, she's got Rose and Snow fighting. She killed Beauty's husband. She's made a bunch of them suffer. So but she was always just her motivations were always petty, and therefore
absolutely
not really important to the story. So I was fine with the way that she ended, honestly.
So I have a complete segue question, actually. Just
go ahead.
Kind of question. So to the point where Beast dies and Prince Charming dies, and you've got all these big shocking deaths that happen throughout these. So earlier when Snow was shot, and by all means should have died, and they're like, oh, but she's a fable, and all this mystical power has kept her alive because of all the stories told.
The belief, people believe in
it. Okay, then how is it that all of these other characters who are just as beloved as she is, I mean, hello, Beauty and the Beast much. Oh, bleh, you're dead.
Gone.
Big B killed you. Bleh, that's all you get. Do they not all get the love that, all the tales?
Well, clearly, there's some difference there because because we've never seen Goldilocks again.
Yeah, which is what we mentioned last time. Yeah.
But we do see Charming is back later. When we get the final Prince Charming story in this, we do see that Charming is back. Like it may have taken a while, but eventually he comes back.
Mm.
Like, and to a certain degree, so Beast is dead, but he's not the Beast anymore.
Right.
The kid's the Beast.
Right.
So potentially there's part of why there's less belief in him anymore is because it's Beauty and the Beast, and there's still a Beauty and the Beast. And they talked about that, like they had to like make the giants the pigs, so the pigs that kind of turned evil wouldn't come back because people believe in the pigs too hard.
Right.
Like, so I do think there's some stuff that like that story is so prevalent, and like they talked about, like they still had to have 3 little pigs because otherwise they would come back. And so I do think some of that is true, and we get that sort of Bigby, like Blue, and this is a good spot to try and transition to Blue's conversation with Bigby that, well, you're going to go back. Like, you know, you're in this transition waiting thing, but you're going back. And so I do think there's some of the, I think they're a little inconsistent with it. They're very inconsistent with it, but like there is some, I was going to say consistency, but I'm not the right word, but it's like there is some follow through with other characters than just Snow.
Not convenience.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a story convenience. They probably should have had her get shot like in the chest or something, where instead of the head, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe Lane's got something more to offer, but for me, like every Fable who's died a death and come back, or at least been seriously maimed and came back, it took time, right? And we just don't have enough. We don't see enough of Beast's time to know whether there is a revival. And with Charming, I mean, we barely even know that he got his moment at the end, So, I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but Beast was turned into basically mush. It's I think if he were to come back again, I think it would take a long time for him to find his way back to that. And to JP's point, he's lost his magic. He's lost his power. He doesn't have, like Bigby, his power of transformation is still imbued in him in every possible way. So, he rebuilding him, retransforming himself is innate. But for Beast, it was this curse which has been lifted.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a wonderful question, and it certainly is a disparity you could view, in a certain light.
Hey, Comic Journey, welcome. We're over an hour into this, but we still got a couple things I want to touch on before we wrap this up. So let's talk about Bigby and Blue and Bigby and Dare.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah.
And that's in the other volume. And I used this the other night for my whatever report. Like, maybe my favorite cover in the entire series.
That's a great thumbnail. Yeah.
Like we haven't talked about the covers, I think, enough in this series. We've mentioned them a few times, but that one of Blue and Bigby.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous cover. Just absolutely gorgeous. But we basically see Bigby in the afterlife or whatever goes for it, and Blue pays him a visit. What did you guys think about that whole scene between the two of them? Unruly. We're going to go with Unruly this time.
Yeah.
Or he's going to ignore me. Can you hear him? Unruly, can you hear me?
What? I'm sorry.
You're okay. What did you think of the whole Bigby and Blue section?
This is going to sound very illogical and inconsistent, but I'm not a big, and I know, and this is not so much logic, it's just a personal preference. The whole, you dip a toe into the afterlife and get some wisdom from someone that's gone ahead of you, and then you go back. I hate that shit. I hate it. It's a great scene, and I really like the little moment he had with Dare. But just that trope of the poking your head into the other side and then coming back again, I just hate it. I hate it.
It is a very often used trope for darn sure. So, John, what about you?
That was beautiful. I mean, the artwork was stunning. The way the background slowly, like watercolor, fades away.
Yeah.
Starts off so rich and full of like dark and lots of great color.
Yeah.
And then, 2 pages later, it's just like, it's just dribbling away. It's starting to become, more transparent. And then, of course, we end up with these almost blank background pages before Dare shows up. So there's a lot of fun symbolism going on. And who doesn't want to see that giant wolf? He looks amazing and adorable in that.
He's so awesome. Yeah.
Easily the best we've seen Bigby in the whole damn series drawn.
Yeah.
And you get from every angle, up close, from far away, this left side, the right side.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a,
And I do think the two of them had a similar perspective on life and death and a lot of things. I think Blue and Bigby saw eye to eye on. So it was useful in that way. And I think we've repeatedly sort of seen a variation of Blue as helping from beyond in some ways, trying to push people in better directions a little bit. And so you see him definitely offering that here a little bit. But yeah, it was a great standalone. I think they called it an interlude issue.
Yeah. And yeah, obviously Blue's one of my favorite characters of the whole series. So I thought it was a great use of their friendship. And then, the moment with Dare was great. Rena and Sharon, what did you guys think of that whole chapter?
I really enjoyed it a great deal. I thought it was really awesome that Blue was all ticked off about the fact that they all had the blue bandanas. He was like, he's like, this is so dumb. Tell him to knock it off. Like, I really enjoyed that a great deal because that's just so Blue,
Yeah.
I mean, it just fits in with his character so well. But yeah, no, I'm 100% with John. I loved how the background bled away and it was just the two of them and their conversation and and of course, I was all like, when he and Dare got treated, I was like, so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and just that heart wrench, when Dare's like, tell me one thing. Did I do good? And don't even continue. But it's like, that they got their time together,
Yeah.
That for me was probably a lot more moving than any of the other crap that was going on.
Well, I mean, just even in the scene where, Dare pops up, and Bigby suddenly transforms. This whole time he's been the wolf. But as soon as he sees his son, he becomes the father.
Yeah.
And you can even see the joy because it's like a 1, 2, 3 of his transition. But you can even see the pure joy in his face in that first transition panel there, which I thought was really cool.
So beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Anything else we haven't touched on? You guys want to touch on in this stuff?
Sleeping Beauty, she gets a good end.
Does she?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's my complaint. I actually complain about the beauty thing is.
Oh, it's Geppetto
Yeah, that's
too.
right.
Oh yeah, we got Geppetto. So we get the whole Briar Rose, who we've never seen like fight in any way. She just goes and sleeps. Like that says she's shown no inclination to be a fighter. And suddenly she decides to go on an adventure, and it ends up with her and she's super lucky, but yet the guy gets a scratch on her that's unlucky, that's going to turn her into a monster. So she has to spend eternity asleep with her greatest enemy. How is that a good end?
She kept her word and took care of that enemy.
I guess.
I would argue that she doesn't have to spend eternity with that enemy. She doesn't know, is in no way aware of what it is, and is able to forego any final judgment on that wound, and instead leaves the villain suffering, watching her for eternity. It made me giggle. It made me giggle.
I don't know.
I like the 3 blind mice's ending and their reverse logic
finally pays off. Yeah, because Ambrose can't tell him that that's not going to work. Basically, they trick Ambrose into creating the very world they want. Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah, we did not talk about Geppetto and his little plan to
It's
to
ridiculous.
steal some of the magic from the forest. So always scheming. I'm curious how much we're gonna get with only one issue left. How much we're gonna get of Geppetto at this point? Like we've seen like the Sinbad is like the guy trying to be emperor in the future. Now maybe he's working for Geppetto or something, but like he's clearly like starting a new empire, which I kind of just want, like, if everybody else is dying, I kind of just want Geppetto to get his. And
I mean, at this point, any Geppetto is too much Geppetto. I'm so done with him. Blah, 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 blah.
He's just kind of annoying. Like
Very.
I feel like he's just this very one trick character, and it's kind of like, okay, this is played out. I'll be honest. Like I found that issue kind of like I found myself wanting to skip it, like just because I didn't care, like about Geppetto at all at this point.
Yeah.
Like the little wooden soldier, I guess was fine, but I just didn't care about Geppetto and his machinations at this point. It's like, just go away.
I just love how the trees have outgrown him.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
The concept that something that he felt was his and had argued was his and had demanded obedience from for centuries or what have you had grown to a place where they realized that they did not need him.
Right.
And we're happier in a place that gave them joy and let them be free and grow.
Be trees.
Yeah.
And I liked that a lot, and it robbed him of.
But yeah,
well, he didn't even know it, but it truly did rob him of some power.
But he tries to, like, he's still trying to steal some of it back, and he's managed to steal some of it back, like a little portion at least.
And being Geppetto, given enough time and a lack of oversight, he'll succeed.
Yeah, and clearly there's a lack of oversight.
And I brought it up before the show, but I love how Jack turned out. Jack is my man.
I did. Yeah, I could have done without ever seeing another page of Jack.
And like, wasn't that the whole point of Jack of Fables? Was his story was supposed to be his own? You know, like, why did he suddenly pop back up?
Just for the joy.
Jack is like Jack is like the opposite of Brandish, or Brandish's weird yin yang counterpoint, where he's not completely soulless and irredeemable.
No, he is.
No, he isn't. No, he's
completely irredeemable.
He did his share in the war to help out. It wasn't a great deal, but when prodded, he'll do the right thing.
What did he do in the war? They already had the beans. They had already taken the beans from him long ago. They said that. Like, he never had the beans.
There was a couple of moments when he fought on the right side. And
that must have been in his book and not in this, because I don't remember him doing anything in this. So.
Well, y'all just letting these Jack hatred blinders.
He earns it.
Yeah.
I like the whole concept of someone that isn't a sociopath, but it nonetheless doesn't have much of a conscience.
Yeah,
that appeals to me because I unfortunately was cursed with one.
But to me, if you don't have a conscience, then you are a sociopath. He's just a less violent, successful one than like Geppetto is. Like, so one last thing. Yeah, that we haven't talked about yet is we do get Cindy back after like a long disappearance. We get Cinderella back in the story. A, she talks to the bird. She finds Grimble. But B, then we get this whole like, and I'm trying to figure out when this fits in, like in the timeline. But we get this whole scene of her, Snow hiring her basically to kill Bellflower or Totenkinder.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel like I love Cindy as a character, and I feel like she's a badass, but I feel like that's punching above her weight a little bit. So like maybe that's just me. And I'll be honest, I feel like that scene's a little bit out of character for Snow.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and like the way they put it that it's like later, but I'm trying to figure out when this, and maybe we're just not to that point yet when this scene could have happened, but like, I don't know, it just seems weird the way they place it in the timeline of the story. It just feels weird.
I agree.
Because Snow's nowhere near this point yet where
Yeah.
she would do this
Yeah.
or like ask this of Cindy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just felt really odd where they put it. I still think it's cool. I think it's a cool conversation. It feels a little other than it, but it's out of character for Snow, I feel like a little bit. And it was just kind of an odd thing. What did you guys think of that? Sharon and Rena, this was your first time reading this part.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. The whole thing was a little odd.
Well, especially since, Snow doesn't really know what she's preparing for. So it's like, why would she ask Cinderella to put a hit out on Frau if there's no real motivation yet?
I mean, obviously, like they say, it's clearly like timeline wise, it clearly has to happen in the last issue.
right.
But like, I don't know, it just felt like an odd placement for them dropping that in there. John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I will say the Totenkinder or Bellflower and where she fits in the Snow White, Rose Red story is a bit odd for me. I still don't know that I fully feel like I grasp why Totenkinder would pick one or the other or even get herself involved in this at all.
I don't
Yeah.
think she would.
Yeah, considering she loves both of them. I mean, she even stated early on that she'd die protected.
They saved her. The two of them together saved her. Like, I feel like she would have been not likely to take sides.
So it puts her in a strange place overall, and that Snow would just assume she wouldn't be on her side and would need to take action is interesting.
Yeah.
But I do think Cindy's an interesting choice as somebody to take on Frau.
Right.
Certainly someone that other people might underestimate.
Oh. I wonder if I got an echo all of a sudden.
Is it? I can't hear it on my end.
I don't hear it either.
No.
Is it just me talking?
No, I don't know. It's gone now. So
Okay.
it was weird. I just got it for a second. So
Harley, she's messing with you.
well, she likes to step on the computer when she walks by. So, but I didn't see her step on the computer that time. But yeah, and it was weird because it was weird that Frau came back and they're gonna fight Big B, and she chose Rose. But part of it was the Golden Knight and the wit thing that they were talking about. But like when they're gonna go fight Big B, like it was a little odd that she would choose Rose in that moment over Snow.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but
Like-
I think Frau just came back to fight Bigby.
Yeah.
And it was Rose that said, "Hey, we've trained together. You just be a third wheel. Plus, it's your
No,
old
but I mean, but Frau chose to train with Rose when she came back. Like that was even before Snow came in the picture. But I think it had to do with the Golden Knight versus the Golden Knight and the Magician or whatever that they were talking about had been set up that had went to fight him before with Beast and Ozma. But it was just, I don't know. It was just kind of that whole thing. Just, and again, they can fix that a little bit in the final volume. But at this point, it just jumped out. It didn't make a lot of sense because is that scene actually before the fight between them and Bigby? Like, I'm trying to remember where that falls.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Or is it after? I think
It's
actually,
like right in the middle. Bellflower shows up, and then we get the interlude with the three blind mice, and then we get the restaurant scene between Snow and Cinderella.
okay. So Frau's
and
back.
then it cuts to the three women, Totenkinder, Snow, and Red, all talking about who's going to go after Bigby now.
Yeah.
So we get it before we even see that Frau's taken aside. at that point. She's just come back to fight him at that point. And then we get this
Yes.
scene. So it was just kind of a jarring. It was just odd placement. I felt like it would have fit better, even if it was just after the fight between Rose, Frau, and Bigby. I felt like it would have been a better placement because at that point they at least established Frau appeared to be on Rose's side. Like, I don't know. But I'm curious now. I will say that I'm kind of excited to see where that goes because I love Cindy. Like, Cindy's one of my favorite characters in the whole series. But like, although I feel like that's not going to work out well for her. I will say, like, I have some serious doubts about that working out in Cindy's favor, which is probably going to make me sad. But all right, we are at an hour and a half. Anything else you guys want? There was a lot in here.
And I will say there's more story in these than in all of the next one. Personally, I feel like the next one is shorter than you're thinking because even if it's as big as like one of these trades, it's only about half the trade because the other half is all these little interludes to see who's going where, you know.
So yeah, and I feel like they got a lot of work to do in this last one, but we'll see.
I don't think they're going to wrap anything up. I mean,
You've already read it.
You've already read it. Thanks. So they're not wrapping anything up.
You don't
Got
think?
it.
I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I don't think. All right, fine. Everybody dies.
Everybody
The
dies.
end.
Not
Go ahead,
everything has to be wrapped up in a neat little bow.
Well, I'm not looking for like everything wrapped up in a neat little bow, like because the nature of the stories and that kind of stuff. I get that, but like there are some things they have to like deal with before they can. It doesn't have to be wrapped up in a neat little bow, but there are things they have to deal with in order to like have any sort of satisfying ending. Hey, Warlord, you're coming in right at the end, but
I mean, it'll be a good opportunity to talk about how we feel about the series as a whole.
Yeah,
instead
so we'll
of
have
just
plenty
that
of time
one
next week
after we finish that one trade. So,
Yeah.
So, any other final thoughts before we get out of here? Unruly, you got some final thoughts?
No, I can barely talk for some reason. I like John's. I'll wrap it up next week and
Okay.
get into detail about what I think about
The whole series as a whole. Okay. Rena, what about you? Final thoughts about these two and going into the finale?
Not my favorite so far. I mean, I like all the Big B stuff, and except for Rose getting his ring at the end. I enjoyed following, what they did with Big B, and you kind of see him in heaven, and then you see, them trying to get him back. But I don't know. I feel like Rose has taken several steps backward, and it bugs me. And I feel like there's a lot of things they haven't addressed yet, which I'm kind of hoping they do. Fingers crossed. So they were really good, but not my favorite.
No. Sharon?
Really violent, really rushed. Not my favorite.
John.
We told you Bigby wouldn't be dead. So there you go.
There you go.
your hashtag.
Hashtag.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel like there's an element of hustle happening here and speed that is not very enjoyable. But at the same time, there's just so many moments that tickled me, made me laugh, made me think, made me gasp the first time I read it. That 20 in particular has so many little moments that I'm just like, oh wow. And I do really enjoy Brandish's tournament or trial by combat. I think, maybe it's just the Game of Thrones fan in me that like loves a good trial by combat that does not go how you expect it to go.
Right.
And I will say the trial by combat is not done. So
I didn't figure it was.
So those kind of things I just really got a big kick out of. And I'll never forget Rose and her machine gun. It's like when Moira McTaggart in her first appearance whips out a giant machine gun and starts shooting at a monster. It's like, yeah, because why not?
I don't know where she got it. I don't care.
For me, like I was really enjoying 20, and like I like the big story points in 21, but like how they got to some of them just bugged me. Like the transition steps or lack thereof in a couple of cases, I felt like really just it kept taking me out of the story. And like I got to the end of it, and then I spent all day Sunday like like just kind of mad because I felt like it was making some of those mistakes that bothered me at the very beginning of the story about how some of it was illogical and didn't like make sense, that they set things up and didn't follow through. And it was just, there were just some things that really bothered me in 21. And a bunch of them they can still potentially fix. I doubt they fix all of them, but some of them they can still fix. But yeah, I just found 21 very frustrating. Like, even though I liked the way they, like, I liked the Big B thing, it's just some of it just, and I knew the Red Queen, White Queen thing was coming. Like, despite the gold armor, black armor, it was always Red Queen versus White Queen. Like, I mean, that was always coming. It just, yeah, I don't know. The details, I felt like it was weak on the details, which is something I cannot say about most of the series.
It's almost like in these, they were going more for the shock value than the story value for me. I felt like they wanted to bump off some big characters. They wanted to be gory. They wanted to be dark, just so everybody would be like, whoa, you know, more than they were really focusing on, you know,
what they had been building.
The story.
Yeah.
I just felt like, yeah, the flow was off, that it was not, like, the thing that I felt like was the best part of most of the story is the details mattered and they tied them together, and there was a lot of like, in this, I felt like they just let some of the details go in an attempt to make the happily ever after title be ironic, that like, oh, well, no, this isn't happily, like, this is happily ever after is ugly. It's not real. And which is fine, but I felt like it just was a miss for me. 21 was a miss for me. So, anything you guys want to promote before you get out of here? I feel like John's the only one that really has like channel stuff to promote. Maybe. Don't you have something tomorrow, John?
Yeah. Whitewood Comics and I are doing our August look back at best comics from August. We're going to talk about the series, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and finish that off. That sounds like an amazing show. We're going to talk about The House on the Lake, A Nice House on the Lake. We'll talk about that one of the best books of the summer, I think. So we'll get into some fun indies and DC Black Label books that were our favorites from the month.
Nice.
And that should be on my channel at 10 Eastern.
Very nice.
Rena, you got anything you're promoting at the moment, or we're just still working?
I don't think I think other than the next Fables, we're just looking at you for the next knockout.
Which is literally going to be like 6 months.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like the next show I think is in like September.
It's like the 18th of September. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing we've got going on is today was our 28th day of the arm challenge. Like,
we got 2 days.
Almost done. You almost made it.
Yeah. Which today was really brutal because unloading a truck and then doing that, I was like, yeah. That actually kind of hurt. But we did.
Well, my usual stuff on the weekends. Next Tuesday we'll be back for the finale of Fables. So looking forward to that. Big Will and I did bring back Collecting Smart last night. If you haven't looked at that, talking about the market manipulation thing. If you haven't seen the video about the WADA games and stuff, we don't go into detail about that, but we talk about like how some of those same things happen in the comic market, maybe on a smaller scale, what to look for, and how you can maybe try to avoid some of those traps that people are trying to set for you to make you overpay. So hopefully that was useful for people. So you can go check that out. We did that last night. And at the end, you get to hear my dog bark at me because it's time to go for a walk. There you go. All right, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out.
What about Unruly?
Unruly never does videos.
Well, like final thoughts or anything going on? Like,
Unruly, do you have anything you want to share with the group?
The president is a Democrat. Remember Grandpa Simpson?
There you go.
Oh,
Oh, goodness. All right. Later, everybody.